They win the 2023 Campeones Cup after a penalty shootout over LAFC. Actually, the second time they've won the trophy, going way back to 2018 when they beat Toronto FC in Toronto 3-1. Herc, you and I were there. We were at that game.
We've been at every single game but this one.
As memory serves well, but we're not too far away here at the downtown.
They're close to our hearts.
LA studios at ESPN. All right, Herc, so time for some Tele Tigres, Tigres TV.
You love it, don't you?
They got it done. Just about. I mean, you know, they had a man advantage for what, 20 minutes? Couldn't really take advantage of it?
15 minutes around there.
No, it was at least 15 minutes.
Well, I mean, this is what Tigres does.
Late in the game, in a final against LAFC that was kind of fading, I would have thought that they would
kind of fading. You know, Tigres played midweek against their bitter rivals, Monterrey. They didn't rest players like LAFC rested players. LAFC
What does
rested
Tigres got coming up on the weekend? Mazatlan?
Mazatlan.
So you can,
Who just beat Chivas.
Okay.
Producer Beto.
But LAFC is in a much more important part of their season. It is crunch time for LAFC.
Tigres is an important part of their season?
I mean, Tigres plays for the trophy at the end of the year in Mexico. You know that.
You know what Tigres does so well?
You think Tigres is so worried about where they finish right now?
Yes. You know what Tigres does so well? They manage games. They manage finals. There's no team in Liga MX right now that I would bank on in a final more than Tigres. They know how to play these type of games. This is what they do. The mind games for Noel Guzman. The organization from the backline, Siboldi, the timely substitutions, Andre Pierre Gignac, who may be 36, going on 48 years old, but can still give you 100+ minutes. Guido Pizarro, that columna vertebral, if you will, that spine of the team. They just know how to play these type of games.
All right, fine. I'll give you that. We all know Tigres' record. We all know that they know how to play these type of games. We also know LAFC's record in these type of games.
That's why you didn't bet on them, and that's why I didn't bet on them.
There is the obvious exception, of course, of the 2022 MLS Cup against the Philadelphia Union. But there are a lot of examples of LAFC in big games not getting it done. So you can say that you know that this was Tigres, but you also knew, and we said it in the last show, that this was LAFC. Did that part of LAFC show itself tonight, or was this just...
It did. Part of it, yes. How naive they were at times.
When?
Right?
Where?
Well, Palacios getting the second yellow.
Right.
You know, you
Especially
have to
when you
know,
got help around you there, right?
There's no need. Yeah. There's no need. But you mentioned the big games. I mean, RSL, first round knockout, right? One of their first years in existence. And then Western Conference Final against the Seattle Sounders, where they were heavy favorites at home, okay? And then it was the first CCL final, albeit two Tigres in a neutral venue in Orlando. They blew the lead against Tigres.
So what is it?
Out. And then it's the second CCL final. And then it's the League's Cup quarterfinal that they're up by 2 goals at the Rose Bowl.
I would love to point to Bob Bradley as the reason that's happening, but now it's a different manager. So why does it keep happening? Because it's not even the same players. I mean, you're talking about 2018. That's 5 years ago now. That's a totally different roster.
Do you know why I trust Tigres so much? Because it's the same protagonists or participants every single time.
Right.
Go back and look how much turnover there is on every single moment for LAFC.
Yep.
They turn over, they bring in the new, they bring in the better, but it doesn't necessarily translate to identity. It doesn't translate to personalidad, that personality, the character in the biggest of moments. Listen, John Thornton and LAFC do a great job of putting together a roster. They really do. There's some very good players. But the Seattle Sounders have a bit of what that Tigres team has. They've got those tried and proven players in those big moments that you can bank on. How many of those players do LAFC have?
Well, they have one. They have the number one guy who it should be is Carlos Vela.
Oh, yeah? Tell me his moments.
Well, today there weren't, and I...
No. Tell me his moments. I just mentioned all those games where they choked. Tell me his moments.
What, Carlos Vela's moments of choking?
No. I'm having a big game for them.
No, that's what I'm saying tonight. So if we look at tonight's performance, if we just look at tonight, like, this is the game where this is why you have a Carlos Vela, right? To go up against a Mexican team with an opportunity to win a trophy. Now, everyone's going to say, well, Seb, you always say that Carlos Vela in the big game doesn't show up. How would you rate his performance? What would you describe what he did or didn't do
Disappointing.
tonight?
I think he was disappointing when he came off.
Because you're saying that...
He looked kind of disgusted when he came
Who
off.
on Tigres' roster gets paid more than Carlos Vela?
Gignac.
Okay, that's one. Who else?
Nahuel Guzman right now, probably. And then Nico Ibanez. You have to realize that if you go, they get paid net there, not gross. And if you look at the type of players
we're getting in the weeds. You know
it's
my
not the
point.
Weeds. It's not the weeds. Carlos Vela's at 2.5 right now, I think, for
All right, a few years ago, Carlos Vela was at 6.
Okay.
And there's nobody at Tigres making more than that.
Jin Yang. He was at 4.5 net. What I'm trying to tell you is I understand what you're saying. The big players who get paid the big bucks, have to come out in the big moments. That's not been.
So how many more big moments does LAFC have to go through with Carlos Vela, whose contract, by the way, is up at the end of the year? And I'm sure internally there's this discussion happening. How many more moments do they have to go through before they say, this isn't the guy, or at least we can't pay him like he's the guy? We got to find somebody else who does do it.
I don't think they're paying him like he's the guy anymore. And I think the next contract, if he's...
Hey, man, with how limiting the MLS salary cap is, you don't think a $2.5 million DP hit is major?
No, because it's the same amount whether you pay him 2.5 or 25 million a year. It's the same amount against the cap. What I'm trying to tell you is I don't think the next contract is going to be something like that. And I think Carlos Vela himself knows that. Carlos Vela is, I think, 34 years old, obviously coming to the latter part of his career. I thought last year was a decent year for him, and they won MLS Cup. Now, the 2 years before that were injury-ridden for him. That was the case. Yep. He had like 11 goals in 2 years. You know, he had injuries in his quads, hamstrings, etc., muscular injuries. It was a bad moment for him. But if Carlos Vela stays with LAFC, I think it's a compromise by both, and he's doing it with the intention of finishing out his career.